All right, well, let's get this show started. I hope everybody's ready to learn a little bit about searching. So, what we're going to do is I'm logged into the Safe product, of course, and I'm going to go over here to the left side of my screen, and we're really going to spend our time focusing on this area right here, search. All right. Now, what you may notice, especially in the recent weeks, there are a lot of new options in the searching area. All right. So I'm going to start out with just some of the most basic stuff that you can do, and then we'll build upon that. Now, the first thing we want to do is let's define what these searches are, and I think they're fairly self-evident, but I don't want to assume anything. So the first one is searching case information. So maybe you want to go in and you want to find a list of all homicides in the last 30 days. Give me all of the cases that have been submitted by a specific officer in the last year. Maybe all the cases that are assigned to a specific officer. But at this point, I'm dealing directly with case level information. All right. As we move down the list, and this is the big one, this is the big area, this is the most elaborate to get involved in. This is doing a search for item related information in the product. I want a list of items brought in from a particular period of time. Give me a list of all of my firearms that were brought in by this person. The results are all based on items. Then we get into people. I need to search against people that are in the software. And this is where we get into a lot of the new stuff that some of you may not have been familiar with that's even in here, and is not even available in our legacy product. For those of you that are on the line that are using our legacy software, you did not have an option in the old product to go in and search against disposals. Give me a list of all the disposals that have occurred this year. I'm not talking items that have been involved in a disposal. I'm talking about things like how many dispositions have we done in the last 30 days? How many auctions have we done in the last year? How many items or how many dispositions have we done where they were returned to an owner? And then we get into other transactional type stuff. Give me check-ins. I want a list of check-outs, moves, transfers. You can search against notes now. That was not available in the old product. And then some of the really new stuff are media, searching against media that's in the software. So just to get our feet wet, let's go in and I'm going to go to one of the easiest areas to search for right now, and we're going to go into the cases area. Okay. And so when I go into the cases search area, it presents me with all the different fields that can be searched against. Now, certainly you don't have to fill in every one of these fields when you're doing a search. You may do something really basic. In fact, the most basic search you can do is go into any one of these areas and just go down to the bottom and click the search button. You do not have to input any parameters, and it will come back and tell you how many cases are in the system, regardless of any parameters. So, for example, I actually got an error. We only display up to 5,000 results. So I've got 90,000 cases in my system right here that I'm running against, and I just simply went down and clicked search. Now, normally you're going to want to input some parameters on one of these searches. So let's tackle something else that's fairly easy, like offense date. So when you go down to the offense date field, you'll notice in here I've got a lot of qualifiers that I can run on this. So for example, if I want every case that is before a particular date, I can go in and say, give me everything before October the 4th. Now, that's not something common you would normally do. Many times you're going to do something like a between variable. Give me everything submitted between, October the 4th and January the 2nd. Now, even more specifically, and this is the one that is used even more often, is give me every case that is newer than 90 days. So at this point, I've only input one parameter on my case. And so let's go down to the bottom and click search, and it's going to come back and tell me how many cases have been entered in the last 90 days. And at the very bottom, I'm viewing 1 to 25 of 44. So I know for a fact that 44 cases have been submitted in the last 90 days. And that's a far different answer than the 90,000 total cases that I have. All right. Now, the nice thing about these searches is you can begin to string variables together. So if you run that search, in fact, let me get something that's a little more hefty because I need something that's going to give me some more results. Let me see how many cases in the last 365 days. Now I'm up to 188. Now that might be nice, but you may say, you know what, I need a little more granular results than that, so I'm going to go with something like offense type. Give me all the. Now you can see I still have the variable in here for offense date is newer than the last year. I'm going to go into offense type and say, give me everything that is a. Let me go burglary because I think that I routinely enter burglary items, and now I'm going to go down and search. And at this point, I'm getting 7 results. So I know that these are all within the last 90 days, and these are all burglary searches. Now, I know many of you are sitting here thinking, boy, this is really easy stuff. I know how to go in and do this. Don't worry, we're building up to some of the more advanced stuff. So you can, if you want, you could literally fill in every one of these fields on the screen, but most likely by the time you fill in a variable for everything, you will have worked yourself out of getting any results. So once you get down to what you're looking for, great, I see I've got 7. I can look at this list. Once you begin to get list of results, you can start doing things with them. Like I can go in and view this case. All right, there. Oh yeah, hey, there's the case that I'm looking for. I can go in and view it. Now, keep in mind, you can always go down to the bottom here and say, hey, I want to clear the search out and I want to start this over. So now I could go in and say, hey, just give me everything that's created by me. I'm logged in right now. So let's see what this result is. And now I can see that I've entered 4,573 cases. You can go in, keep that. And notice, by the way, the window, when you get the results, the window closes up at the top. You just click on it, open it back up, and then you can go in and say, you know what, I want to build onto these parameters, or I want to go down and clear this search and start over something new. All right. Now, what I don't want to do as part of this presentation is to go through every one of these fields specifically. We do not have time to go through, what is the, well, I can tell you real quick a couple of these that are probably the more important ones. Who created the item? All right, which is different than who is the case officer. You can have somebody create the item and have a different case officer. So, one of the common searches that comes out of this is maybe, hey, I've got a guy retiring and I need to know how many cases is he the case officer on. So you can go in there and you can type the name of an officer, or you can put the current user, which is me, logged in, and hit search and then get that answer. All right. And so I'm at, well, pretty much the same answer. However many items I created, I'm the case officer. Okay. Now let me stop. It looks like we got some questions coming in, but are there any fields anybody wants to cover specifically on this screen? I'm thinking probably as people see tags coming in. Let me come back to tags. We'll cover that in just a little bit. I don't want to quite get into what tags are at this point. All right, so let's go with that for just a moment. There is some basic case searching at this point. So let's flip into something else like disposals. So when I go into disposals, let's start out with my very easy search. I'm just going to hit search, and I can tell at this point, I have now done 62 disposals within this system. Now, this is very different than our legacy product in that you could search for items that were disposed of in the old product, but you would not be able to go in and say, hey, I've done 62 total dispositions. How many items were involved in those? So if I went in and disposed of 20 items in one disposition, that would be one disposition, but I would have 20 items. Oh, there's one right there. This disposition right here included 20 items. And I can actually click on these and look at the results of that. So if what I'm looking for is that yellow bike right there, I can actually click on the GUID right there, and it's going to take me into the system and bring up that bike, and now I can see that. Joe, let me take a breath. You got anything you want to throw out?
I do. Got a question from the audience. Will the search feature be permission driven? So do you have the ability to give permissions to do different searches based off of rank, departments?
The answer of that is it's coming. Okay, so inside and I don't want to delve into the permissions on it, but I do want to show this off real quick. Inside the settings area of your security area, if you go in and say, all right, I've got a power user that's logging in. If I go to the permissions area, these are all the checkboxes for what somebody can do. I've actually got in the development plan to put an option in here for doing mass searching. Because right now we've got the searching tied to the fact that if you can create an item, you can go in and do searching. So what we're going to do is add another security option that says, hey, can you mass search all these topics over on the left? So right now, if somebody can log in and basically do anything, they can go in and do searching. But we will get that to where it's driven that way. Okay. Anything else you can throw out there, Joe?
That's it.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right. So anyways, again, I'm covering basic searching. So let me show another basic search. Let's go down to the media area. This is a new thing that we've just built into the software. So if you're using this system to store all of your media, so now I can go in and say, give me all my media. Well, let's just view everything right now. So right now, how many pieces of media are in this system? And I can tell you right now, there's 1,782 pieces of media. Okay, and media is pictures, documents. It could be MP4 files, videos. We've got clients that are starting to use this for videos now. So you can go in also and say basic searching. Give me a list of all media that is active, that I've not deleted the payload file. How much is active where the upload date is older than 365 days? You see how I'm starting to string these things together to where I get down to something that is more specific in nature. So at this point, I can tell you out of 1,700 total pieces of media that have ever been entered, 907 of them are still active and older than a year. Okay? So that all I'm doing is going into whichever area I need to search and putting in the parameters of what I'm looking for. So what I would highly suggest, let's go into the items area, because this is one we do want to cover, because this is, you'll notice in the items area that there are more fields and more options in the items area than there is in any one of the other areas. And the reason for that is very simply, the purpose of our software is evidence item tracking. There's only a couple of fields that are collected at the case level. There are far more fields that are at the item level. So some of the common searches that you may do is give me every item where category is equal to, let's go with DNA. And now that's a very, very simple search. Let's see how much DNA is in my system. There's 8 items, and there they are. Let's go back up to the parameters. And there's a couple areas I really want to cover in here, because these are some good ones that are specific to the item, and that is storage location. So you can go in, and did you notice that I cleared my search out before I started a new one? Because if I didn't clear it out, I would be searching DNA and whatever I put into this field. So you can go in and say, how many items are in a specific area? Now you can tell by the new menu option how many items are in there. I can tell you I've got 16 items in the permanent lockers. But what I don't know is if those permanent lockers have sublocations below it. So I can go in here and say, here, select that, include sublocations, and then I go down to the bottom and search. There's actually 26,000 items within that. So that's a little hefty. So let's go back and let me see if, let's go with category equals firearms. So now let's see how many firearms are inside permanent lockers or the sublocations that are within them. And so now, there we go, 1,204. So again, I'm starting to get some more granular results. How about things that are in the last 365 days? So notice I still have those parameters down here at the bottom. All I did was add another variable onto it. We go down here and say I want to search. And now I'm down to 2. So see, this becomes, once you start paring these results down, yes, there is the item that I'm looking for, and then you can begin to work with these once you get them down into there. All right. Let me see if there's anything at the top of this page that I want to specifically cover. Offices down here at the bottom, some of you guys may know I've got offices listed. That is only applicable if you have multiple offices within the product. So if you happen to have, like in my scenario here, I've got a drug task force, I have my main evidence room. One of the features of the product is that you can segment evidence out amongst different offices. And so this actually will help you if you say, hey, listen, I want to get rid of the main office. By running this search now, I'm going to get any item created in the last 365 days that is in a permanent locker or a sublocation and is a firearm and is in the drug task force. Now, how many results you guys think I'm going to get? None. I've gotten too many variables on it at this point. Okay? So that is going in and doing some basic searching. I would, one of the things you can do that is the easiest to begin to get a feel for this is just not right this second, but go into your system and start bouncing through these different areas and start plugging in variables and seeing what results you get.
Ben, got a question for you.
Fire away.
Searching sublocations.
Yes.
How would you search a sublocation as opposed to a root level location?
That's a very good question. So here's what I would do. We know for a fact that when I go into these permanent lockers, there are things below it. So if I know which location I want to search, you just go in and so let's start that over. I hit /, I select the root. Now I go / again, and now you can start to see, there's all the sublocations I didn't see before. So if I were to go in and select test 3 and include sublocations, now I'm only going to get stuff that is in test 3. Now, another cool thing about the locations here now, I could have just gone in here and typed in test 3 and looked at all of my test 3 locations, regardless of what the root is, and now select it. And when I run this now, I should get 6,827 results, which I do, which is too many to display. And that pretty much means there's nothing below test 3 because I saw what the results were. Okay, so that's a good one. Being able to search against these locations is certainly of extreme importance. Okay. A lot of these other fields, like the make field, so if you were to go in and say, hey, I want to search everything for Apple iPhone, so like Apple is a make. Typically, you're not going to do an equals to on a field that is handwritten. Because the problem is now, even as easy as Apple is to spell, somebody's going to mess that up. So, and anytime you do a contain search, it's going to slow it down just a little bit. So I can tell you at this point, there are 10 items in the system where the make contains the word Apple. Okay. All right. So the big thing right now is getting in and starting to just play around with doing searching. So let's take this up a notch and let's get into a little more advanced level searching. So let me start out by going back to my cases area. All right. So two of the options that we didn't cover earlier that are down here at the bottom are searching against historical information and searching against custom data. So what do I mean by historical information? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into my system and I'm going to bring up this case over here on the left. So here is a case that is in the software. And I can tell by looking at this, it's a drug offense. So what happens if I go in and edit this case and change it from a drug offense? Which I'm going to do. We're going to switch this to fraud. And now I'm going to go down to the bottom and save it. So now the question becomes, how do I know every change that has been made in the system, or at least in the cases area? So this is where when you go in and do a search and you go down to the cases level, we're going to leave all of this blank up at the top. I don't want to put anything up there for right now. We're going to search the history. So what I can do is go in and say, now, give me every case that an update was made by, and let's go with Ben Townsend. Or you pick the user, whatever it is. And you can even go in and say, I want every update that, well, let's run this right now. Let's see how many results I get. So now I run a result, and I can tell you, I've made 207 updates. And most likely, let's go sort my list up here to get all the newest stuff on top. And so there is the case that I just modified. That is the case number. So now if you want to know, well, what was the modification that was made? I can go in and view the case, go to the history tab at the very end, and you may not have known this. That history tab shows you all the modifications that have been made. So check that out. Down here at the bottom, I can tell it was, anytime this was updated, it was drug offense, drug offense, drug offense, drug offense, and then all of a sudden it got switched to fraud. Okay? Now, I will admit this area, we're still building it up to show all the data on the case. At some point, you'll be able to go in and say, okay, yeah, let me see all the data on that case and bring it up. But right now, the very simple task right there is I can go in and tell every update ever made by Ben. Now, you can also link those things together at the bottom. So let's go back and say I want all updates made by Ben, but I only want ones where it is fraud at this point. Because I'm going to narrow, you saw 207 earlier, so you can actually select things up at the top and link them with the things down there at the bottom. So where is, I'm losing track, offense type. So let's go with fraud. So this should give me, now keeping in mind, the fraud is what is the current condition of the case. It's not, if I put in drug offense, I wouldn't get the one that I changed. So let's run this now. And now we should still see there is the fraud case. So I can tell you Ben Townsend has made 7 updates in the history of this system where the current offense type is fraud. Now, if that was even too many results, you could go back here and say, well, great, I got all of this. I want to go in and see everything that was updated by Ben, but only things that are after a particular date. So let's go back and say June 1 of 16. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get the same amount. Nope, actually, I got 4. So you see how I'm starting to narrow the results down here. Okay, so that history search is also something new in this system that you did not have in the old product. Okay, and the last thing I want to finish off here in this area is searching custom data. Now, building custom data forms is another topic for another day. As a matter of fact, I think 6 weeks from today, we're going to get into using customization in the software. So right now, I have to make the assumption you already know how to build custom fields. If you don't, come back in 6 weeks and you can watch the presentation on that. Joe, do you have any questions before I get into that?
None right now. Okay. We're doing good.
So what I'm going to do is, let's just to be sure, I'm going to clear out my search. I want to make sure I don't have any variables up at the top. And now I'm going to search custom data. So when I go into search custom data, these are all of the custom data forms that are in my site for a case. So I can go down here to the bottom, and let's say this is the form I want to search against. So at some point, somebody built a custom form, and the custom form was type of offense, and there's only one field on it called type of case, and there was felony, misdemeanor, and infraction. So by going in and doing this, I can say search this, and it should come back with any case where there's a custom data form that has type of case equals misdemeanor. And at this point, let's see how many results I'm getting. Now, I will say, when you start getting into custom forms, it does slow the search down a little bit more. Let's make sure that I can get some results here. And so there's 9. There are 9 cases that a custom form is attached to it where that field was selected. So let's pick one of them. Just hopefully I'm not stepping on a landmine here and I'm wrong. I'm viewing the case at this point, and when I go down to the bottom, there it is, type of case equals misdemeanor. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. And by the way, just as I strung this stuff together, you know, I've got, let's go back down and do that one more time. Type of offense equals misdemeanor. You could go up to the top and say, I only want ones that are newer than the last 30 days. All right, so we go down here to the bottom and search it. Let's see if we get less than 4. You know what? I should have known that was going to happen. I got 0. Because there are no cases in the system created in the last 30 days where that form was used. Just to prove I can get some results here, let's do this. Okay, I'm at the 230 mark right now, so I need to start picking up a little bit of steam right there. So it looks like all 9 of these cases were generated in the last 365 days. Okay, so the medium level effort that, you know, at the beginning when I talked about basic searching, to me, basic searching is using any one of these fields up at the top above the history and the custom data searches at the bottom. Any one of these standard fields up at the top, that should be basic. Everybody should know how to do it. The medium level stuff is when you start stringing in custom data forms and your history searches. And I'm telling you, when you guys get to a point where you can do a search for every currency item that has ever been modified, that becomes important. You know, all of a sudden, one of your officers goes rogue, and you want to know every item ever checked out to that officer. You should be able to go in and do that. Okay? All right, Joe, any questions before I start the deep end of the pool?
Dive in.
All right. Okay, guys, buckle up. If there is a deep end to searching, I'm about to show it. All right. So the deep end is taking any of these basic searches that I complete and saving them and running them against another area. So let me give you an example of a fairly advanced query and how I'm going to do it. What if you came to me and said, I want every homicide where I have ever returned an item to an owner? All I want is a list of every homicide where at least one item has been returned to owner. It's not give me a list of every item in the system returned to owner. It's far more specific than that. So let's start out at the basic end of that and work up into the advanced. So how do I find out items that have been returned to owner? Well, I have to go into the dispose. That is a disposition transaction. So I'm going to go in and say, give me every item disposed of, but the disposal method equals return to owner. Now let's make sure we get some results on this. And I am. There are 16 dispositions that have been returned to owner, but that doesn't tell me how many cases are involved or even how many items are involved. Now you could go right down this list and visually, add up all these numbers. If there's 16 rows and every one of them is a 1, except this is a 2, it looks like 17 items have been involved in that. But what happens when this list is 1,000 long and you've got some return to owners that had 45 items in it or 30 or whatever the number is? Now you can't just visually spot check it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the bottom of my screen now that I see these results, and I'm going to save that search. Okay? All dispos returned to owner. All right? Now the cool thing, there's multiple reasons to save a search. All right, let me go back to my dashboard and let's go. One of the reasons to do it is when you go back into the disposals area and here's a list of all the searches that I have saved. These are my searches, not everybody in the system, my searches. So by saving a search, the most simple thing you can do is go in and say, hey, there's the search I want to run. Let's rerun this again, and you don't have to build all the variables. There's my answer, 16. But here's where we go to the deep end of the pool. I've now gone in and saved a disposition search. Let's go into the item search. And now what I want to do is I want to run an item search that is based on that disposition search that I built. So I'm going to go right here to this area down toward the bottom. I want to go in and select that search right there. And so by putting no other variables in, if I run that search, I should get a list of, amazingly, 17 items that were disposed of to the owner. Now we know that 17 was correct because when I did the disposition search, I visually counted them up. So now this is nice because this tells me every item that was involved in a disposition. But we're really going to go deep here now, and what I'm going to do is save this search. So let's go back up. And what I'm saving is the fact that there's nothing at the top, and I have included that one right there. So I'm going to save this, and we're going to name this all items where dispo is returned to owner. Now, the reason I type out really long descriptions is because the description should be specific enough to tell you what the results of the search are going to be. If I just put in here, all dispos, well, if you ever go back and run that search again and you're expecting that to be all dispos, but it comes back with something far more specific than that, then you may have a problem. Now, since I brought that up, let me go back real quick again. How would we know if what I'm searching for is what I'm actually getting? Let's go back to dispos. The way you would know, let's go back and pick that one I saved earlier. You don't have to blindly trust the results. You can go right back up to your search parameters and look down the list and say, oh yeah, it's giving me everything that was returned to owner. If all of a sudden you run that and you snuck in one of these, that's not the name of it up at the top. So I would save this as a new search. So I say all of that just to pay attention to what you're naming the searches. And if you do go back and modify one of them and save it again, make sure you don't have a name that is not respective of what it actually is. All right, so let's go back to the items again. And what I want to do is bring up that search that I saved. And that's what it's called. All items were disposed, returned to owner. Let's run it and just make sure I'm getting 17 results again. And there's my 17 results. And now we're going to go up one more level. We're going to go back up to the case section. I told you guys this is the deep end of the pool. So if you're like pulling hair out right now and you're like, I have no clue what this dude's doing. Again, this is the deep end of the pool. All right.
Ben, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In search results, what does the word private mean in the disposed by column?
I did not notice that. Let's go back. So I'm going to go back. I assume that it's within the item search. Is that what that was?
No, yeah, I didn't see it myself.
Okay. Well, let me hop back in here and see if there is a private column. Whoever asked that question, if you could fire something back. Oh, it looks like it's within the dispo search area. You know what, Joe? I may want to come back to that and finish up my other thought. Is this where it's
Okay.
at? You know what?
Goes by, yeah.
I'm guessing that that is an item that was disposed of in an office that maybe I don't have access to. I'm
That's what it
actually, you know
was.
what? Yeah, I'm going to go with that. That it's probably a user that I don't have access to their information. I
Different
don't.
office.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, because the fact is, I can click on the item and let's go in, and then I can see from within here actually what was done. It was Matt that did the disposal. I don't have a great answer for that. I don't know why that's coming up that way. We may have to dig into that. So, all
Okay.
right, well
Good answer.
let's go back to my let me go back and finish up my other thought before we start with some more questions here. So the last thing that I was doing was I was going to go into the cases area, and I'm going to go down, and within the cases you can reference an item search. So I'm going to go down and find that item search. There is the item search. I'm not going to put in any other variables, and I'm going to go down and click search. And I can tell you right now that I have 15 cases in the system where at least one item was disposed of to the owner. And so now all I have to do is click on any one of these cases. We go up and look at the items tab, and I can tell indeed that there are two disposed items. Let's go ahead and select both items, and we're going to run a chain of custody report. Unless I'm completely wrong, one of these items, actually maybe both of them, were disposed of to the owner. Right here, this item was disposed of. You know what? I don't have it showing on there where it was disposed of to. We need to get that on this chain of custody report to show the reason or how we disposed of it. I know my answer was right to that, but in the end, that right there, if you can learn how to start at the lowest levels. Now, I will tell you, the lowest levels are disposals, check-ins, check-out moves, transfers, and notes. Build a search in there, then you can go to the item level, and you'll notice down here at the bottom, here are all the different searches that you can plug in at the item level. You actually could reference, so let me give one more and then I'm going to stop this. Give me a list of every item that belongs to a homicide. So I have to go back up to the case level. I have to build a search. In fact, I may have one up here. Do I have all homicides, all cases, all? Here, we'll go with drug offenses. I'll use this saved one right here. This should be all cases that are drug offense. Let me see how many. There's 46 drug offenses in the system. Let me verify that what I'm getting is what I expect. Okay, there's only one variable plugged in, which is drug offense. All right, so I'm good with that. Let's go to the item level now, and let's tie this item search into that case level. All drug offenses. Where is that at? Right there. Search. And now I'm going to get a list of every item. There are 99 items related to a drug offense. Okay, let me take a step back and repeat something I've probably already said too many times. There is a lot going on in these advanced searches. The one thing that you can just put in your holster and know that this is good to run with, you cannot mess up the system by running an advanced search. Okay, I understand if you're going in like if I was doing a training on importing data, well, that may be a big deal that you're in importing data and you could mess something up. Doing a search, you cannot. I shouldn't say that. Somebody on here is probably capable of messing up the system based on an advanced search, but it's going to be really hard to do. So go into your advanced search area and just play around with it. Do basic searches. Start doing the historical stuff. Maybe you notice something come in and it's like, man, somebody just changed that. Let me go in and run a historical search. When you start to learn all these different areas and how to wield them, it's going to become very, very good. Okay, I got four more things that I can blitz through pretty quickly, but I'm down to 14 minutes left before this whole thing may blow up on our timer. Joe, is there any questions you want to cover?
Nothing.
Questions?
You're good.
Okay. All right. So the next thing, so the next thing I was going to cover is saving a search. I think everybody has seen at this point, when you go in, no matter what area you're in, you go in, you build it, you can go down to the bottom and save it. Now, I told you a little bit ago, the reason you save a search is because you can come back in and run it from within this screen and it keeps you from having to rebuild it. But actually, the even better answer is so that you can go back to the dashboard and make that search show up on your dashboard. Now, for those of you that are using the product right now, I hope that your dashboard looks as elaborate as what mine does. If you're looking at this and you're like, I have no clue where all that stuff came at, but boy, I'd really like to have all of that, maybe your screen looks like this. Let me do this here real quick. I'm going to get rid of every widget on here. Oh, there we go. Now, maybe your screen looks like that where there's no widgets on there. Well, let me help you get this screen populated. So let's do a couple of basic things. Hit the Add Widget drop-down menu, and there's a whole list of things that you can do in here. The most popular widget is this one right here, Organ versus Dispose. Just turn it on. All right, go back in. Any one of these that say graph next to them, those are good ones to have turned on. So there's a list of all my items coming in over a period of time, everything that's been disposed of, all of my items by status. Typically, if you're running the evidence room, which is most of the people on the line, turn on all these org items by whatever graph. Okay, and so now you get 3 good graphs on there. Another thing that you may not have known was in the window here. Go down to the bottom and you see these ones with stars next to them, general stats and drug stats. You can turn these on. These are template widgets that we built for you. All you got to do is go in and turn them on, and it will begin to show you data that's in your evidence room. So I just turned on general stats, and I can tell you, keeping in mind, every one of these rows here is based on a search that was created and saved and then put into one of these widgets. All right. So for most of you, go in and turn on all the org widgets, go down to the bottom and turn on all the statistics widgets. Just turn all these ones down, all these ones with a star next to them, just turn them all on. All right. Now I'm going to delete these because I want to start out with a blank screen. I want to show you now how to build your own stats widgets, because now that you're a Jedi with going in and building a search and saving a search, I want to show you how to put it on the screen so that you can build your own widgets. So the beginning of a widget is always the statistics widget here. When you're going to build your own and populate it with saved searches, go in and build a statistics widget. So I go in here, I turn it on, I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to call this Ben's widget. Now, I'm only naming it so that when I log in and see it, it looks something like what I want. So now that I've built a container, now I'm going to go in and start populating it with rows. When you hit this plus button, here is a list of every search that you've built, every one of them. So down there at the bottom, remember that search that I built a little bit earlier, all items that were dispo returned by owner. I should be able to go in and put this in here. Now I'm going to name the field, all items where dispo equals RTO. And so I'm going to save it. And if all goes well now, I should get a line item that has 17 results. That was the original search that I saved was at the dispo level. And as you're building these things, you can, now that this screen's on, these will refresh every 24 hours unless you click the little twirl button right there that will automatically refresh the window. All right. Okay, so now I've got a widget with an element. I click on it. It's going to take me into the item search area, and there is the results. So that becomes the idea. Build and save searches, then place them on your dashboard so that when you log in, now you can start seeing these things that you have built. So here's another one. All auctioned items. Save it. Now I've got some more results. Maybe you want that at the top of the list. You can click and drag that up at the top, and now you got that in that order. You can go in and add another statistics widget. So this one may be Ben's widget, and I'm going to call this one annual stats. All right, so you go in there, then you save searches, begin to populate that. You can have an unlimited number of widgets on the main screen where you are populating these with things that you care about. Now, I would probably admit you're going to turn on these ones that we've already built for you. Look and see what's in there. The things you're going to build are the things that are not in the list that you want. And by the way, you can go in and add to these lists that are already in here also. Just go down to the bottom, click the plus button, and you can start building these things up. There is no reason that anybody that is using our system that is an administrator of your evidence, you should not be able to go in and build searches, basic, medium, high-level searches, go in, save them, have that stuff on your dashboard. I'm hoping a week or two from now that I get an email from somebody where they sent me a screenshot and they've got 100 different pieces of data on their dashboard. That's what I want to see. I want to see our users, because the reality is most of our users in the legacy product did not do searching at all because it was cumbersome, it was difficult. At the very least, you should be able to do basic searching within this product. I understand maybe you don't want to go to that deep end of the pool where you don't remember, you're not comfortable with it. Again, knowing you're not going to mess anything up, there's no reason not to go in and try it. If you build a widget you don't like, you can always delete it. Just, oh yeah, that didn't work out, I'm going to get rid of that. Play with it, learn, get stuff on the main screen, be able to know what stuff you got. All right. So now once you build up all these searches, one last thing I want to throw out, and then we'll do questions for a few minutes. The last thing is once you begin to build these things up and you're starting to get data that is relevant to you, then you can start saying, okay, listen, I've got I'm trying to think of oh, here, let me give you probably the most classic example in the system. How many items are in my temporary lockers right now? So let's go back. I'm going to go into my item search. All right. And I'm going to go in and let's do a search. I want all items that are in my temporary locker right now. Okay. And we're going to go, there's my temp lockers. And I'm going to include sublocations because if I have stuff below that, I want to get all of that. So I want to go down and let's search that real quick. And I've got 97 items in my temporary locker. Well, we knew that. So I'm going to go in, let's save that search. All items in temp lockers. Okay. And let's save that. Let's go back to my dashboard. Let's add a statistics widget. I'm going to add an element. I want all temp items. So there's the new search that I built, all temp items. Okay, I'm short for time, so you're just going to have to accept my misspelling. I'm sorry. So the reason we want this on the dashboard, maybe even in the top left-hand most prominent area, is because one of the most basic jobs you do every day is what's in my temporary locker, and I'm going to process it. So now that every day when I come in, if that number is above 0, presumably that means it's time to go do something with it. I can now click on that number 97, and then I can begin to go in and process this stuff if I want. There are the 97 items. So you can go in and start selecting. Maybe, let me go down here and say, hey, I want to show up to 100 items. Check this out. So I'm going to go in. I'm looking at all 97 items. I don't know if you guys knew this existed. Select every item, go to export, and I say I want to export selected. Check this out. So now if for whatever reason I need an Excel document that shows a list of all 97 temporary items, there they are. I don't know, maybe for whatever reason you need to print this out and somebody's got to go back and sort of do a spot inventory on it. I don't who knows what the example is. But most likely you're going to start processing all that evidence. So every day, again, one of your most basic things, make sure that number's pretty close to 0. In the old product, there was a temporary tab. You would click on it and it would show you all the temporary items. And here, that's how you do it in this system now. So I know that we've got somebody on the line here at a local police department that is starting to track all their body cam video within the product. So one of the things she's doing is when the video is uploaded, it's unassigned. So now she's keeping track of all the media that is unassigned. And if that number is ever above 0, she knows she's got some work to do. Okay, let me stop because I'm down to less than 5 minutes left on this, and we've gone. I knew this one was going to run long today. I would expect most of these to go 30 minutes. Today was a really, really deep topic. And so I want to stop and take a breath for a moment. Before everybody checks out, by the way, when I close this in the next 4 minutes, there's a quick survey at the end of it. Hang out, and if you wouldn't mind taking that survey for me, there's 5 questions on it. It's just multiple choice. You just select an answer. So I'm planning on ending in 4 minutes, but are there any questions, Joe? Anything somebody wants to know or have me elaborate on their show as much as I can in 4 minutes?
Really good question. Can saved searches be shared with other users?
That is an awesome question. Okay.
Yep.
The answer was no until the next release that comes out. Do you guys see that 1.0 on that search right there, or 1/0? We actually just built the option. So what you do is you can tell one of your other users, go in and select the copy user widget. And then they just type in 1-0, and however detailed your widget is, it will copy that onto their screen so that they can have it. So maybe I can imagine there's somebody on the line where maybe you're the guru in the evidence room, but the boss, sits in the back and doesn't do anything. But every once in a while, they like to have some widgets to make it look like they're on top of things. So you build out some really elaborate widgets. Just go with let them log in, because every one of these dashboards is their very own screen. Now you can go in and say, okay, hey, what was my number? It was whatever it is. You can go to their screen and copy that in. So that actually is in the release right now. I didn't know it was coming out as quick as it was, but it is in there. So very good question, and the answer is yes.
Awesome. No, you skipped over tags.
Yeah.
I got a good question from an existing user wanting to know, what we're doing with how we're replacing the bucket. So.
Okay. So the question. So in the old system, there was the bucket. You know what? I'll tell you what. There is zero chance I'm going to cover this in the next 2.5 minutes.
Yep.
What I would like to do is continue that in another session. So Joe, please write that down, and let's throw that on to one that doesn't go as long as it does today. Because I'm literally down to 2 minutes, and I got no shot at covering tags and the bucket list and all that, but we will cover that.
I'm getting lots of bucket questions, so yes, we will definitely cover that.
So maybe we will have an entire session on how to use tagging to replace the bucket. But once you learn how to do tagging and how it works with searching, tagging becomes very cool also. So we'll come back to that.
Okay. Tasks. Let's see here. We mentioned we're covering that.
We'll have that. The next session will be all about task. Probably the other thing too is because task won't take as long to cover. I think today I covered the most in-depth session we could have right now. So the next one will not be as much. There'll be some miscellaneous things that I want to cover at the end of it. Like we have a really cool tablet now that we know that people can use in the evidence room. It's a Windows tablet. I want to cover that. There's some basic things I want to cover. Today, you guys are probably already worn out. I know I'm already worn out. So I think what we'll do is if anybody has any questions, you know how to reach us. We're going to go ahead and shut this session down for today. I hope this works out. Please email me some success stories. It will do my heart wonders if I can get some people to send me an email with some screenshots of some cool stuff they built. So that would be really cool to see that. I hope you guys learned a bunch today and can run with this. So as we shut down here after Joe gives the last word, hang out for another 30 seconds because a survey is going to pop up. Any thoughts you guys have, you can fill it out in the survey. So Joe, you get the last word.
I get the last word.
Well, you got 30 seconds to get it out.
All right. Thanks for attending. Feel free to shoot us questions. You guys know how to get a hold of us on anything specific that you've seen today. I'm more than glad to help you out.